Alright guys, welcome to a new video. This is something different than you've been used to if you've been following the channel. It's March Madness, and I just figured I'd go ahead and just record myself making my bracket and just post it on here just for fun. I know this is a college football channel, but I also love sports, and March Madness is one of my favorite sporting events of the year. I love it just as much as I love college football, frankly. It's just so much fun, and I love filling out brackets and stuff. And I'm not claiming to be expert on college basketball whatsoever. I'm just kind of doing this for fun. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I have not picked a champion correctly in the last 9 years. The last time I picked a champion correctly was UConn in 2011 with Kemba Walker, so it's been a long time. And I know there's more to it than just picking the champion, but if there's one thing that I have been good at with these, it's filling out first round upsets. I feel like I've been good at calling first round upsets in the past. However, this year's just different because there hasn't been a lot of non-conference play, so it's really hard to judge how good each conference really is, other than how they did against themselves. So, without further ado, we'll just go through this really quick. So to start, obviously, I'm going to have Gonzaga moving on. And then this 8-9 between Oklahoma and Missouri. This was honestly a legitimate toss-up for me. And I looked at the line. When in doubt, if it's a legitimate toss-up, I just go with the team that's favorited. And Oklahoma's favorited by like 2 points. So I'm just going to play the odds there and go with the Sooners there. But legitimately, it's 50-50 for me. Creighton and UCSB. I was really close to picking UCSB here, but I'm just going to go with Creighton. I know that Creighton's probably a favorite pick right now to get upset because they had that issue with their coach. And, maybe people think they're trending down and whatnot. I know they lost a few games in the Big East tournament. And UCSB could pull it off, but I'm just going to roll with Creighton. But this is where I have my first upset. I have the Ohio Bobcats beating Virginia. And I know that's bold. It's probably, honestly, my boldest pick of the first round, but for whatever reason, I just think one of these two teams is going to get upset. I think Virginia or Creighton's going to get knocked out in the first round, so I decided just to go with one of the two, and I'm going to go with Ohio. I know it's bold, and Virginia's a very efficient team. They don't make a lot of mistakes and very well coached, but I'm just rolling with the Bobbies there. It's a roll the dice for sure. But anyways, we'll move on. And this one was also kind of tough because I do like USC, but I'm going to pick them to move on. I'm not really sure about Wichita and Drake. Wichita State, I'm not really too sure of. If Drake wins that playing game and it's Drake versus USC, I actually might think about picking Drake, but I'm not sure. But for right now, I'm going to go with USC. And then Kansas over Eastern Washington. This is an interesting matchup. VCU's got good defense. Oregon's a solid offensive team. But I'm going to go with the good offense. I'm going to go with Oregon out of the Pac-12. And then, of course, Iowa over Grand Canyon. And then moving down here, got Michigan moving on. Another interesting 8-9 matchup. I really liked LSU. They played well in the SEC tournament, but I'm actually going to go with St. Bonaventure. I'm imagining that LSU is probably the popular pick here in this matchup, but I'm going with the Bonnies. And LSU's got a great offense, but they're not really that great of a defensive team, and St. Bonaventure is very balanced. So I was looking at it, and I decided to go with the Bonnies, the more balanced team, over LSU, though obviously I could see LSU easily winning this game. And I could see either one of these teams giving Michigan a tough time in the next round. Here, I guess a lot of people like Georgetown, but I just don't see it. I like Colorado. I'm going to go with the Buffaloes. Georgetown's only in because they won their conference tournament. Florida State, UNC Greensboro. I'm going to go with Florida State. And then here, it's kind of the same situation as the 6-11 with the play-in game on the other bracket. I like BYU to move on, but if UCLA wins that play-in game between them and Michigan State, I might pick UCLA to win and beat BYU because I like the matchup better, but we'll see. But I'm just going to play it safe for now and pick BYU. And they are still a good team. BYU is a very solid team. They're in the same conference as Gonzaga, and I think they gave Gonzaga a run for their money in the championship game there, so I like them. Texas over Abilene Christian. And this one I was also back and forth on. I almost picked Maryland, but I'm going to roll with UConn. Maryland, a very solid team out of the Big Ten. The Big Ten just has so much depth. I think, what's Maryland's record? Yeah, they're 16 and 13 and they're a 10 seed. That just shows you how highly the Big Ten the committee rather values the Big Ten. But I like UConn. UConn's such a balanced team, and they've been playing very well lately. They've made a little bit of a run towards the end of the season, and there's just something about UConn in these tournaments, man. So I'm going to pick them to move on. Alabama, easy pick over Iona. And then moving up here, gonna have Baylor moving on, and then, man, what a hell of a 8-9 matchup we have here. I mean, this honestly shouldn't be an 8-9 matchup, but I think a lot of people are going to pick North Carolina because they've been playing well lately. I'm actually going to go with Wisconsin. And again, I think this is going to attest to the Big Ten depth, but Wisconsin's, believe it or not, is number 10 in KenPom's efficiency ratings, which is insane. And they're a 9 seed. And I think North Carolina could easily win this game, don't get me wrong. But I'm going to go with Wisconsin. I think that's a little bit of an upset pick in the sense that everyone else is probably picking North Carolina, but I could be wrong. I'm sure Wisconsin will be favored, though. Over here, I'm going to have Villanova. I did my research into these lower seeds here to see if they were, all these lower seeds, to see if they were, the right team that could have that lightning in a bottle type of play that could pull off an upset, but I just didn't see it from either of these two teams here. So I also like Purdue moving on against North Texas. This one, you had to think about. Utah State's a very solid defensive team, but they are vulnerable to turnovers and rebounding. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech, but I could see Utah State winning that game. I'm going to roll with the Red Raiders, though. And then here, man, I was so high on Colgate. I looked into Colgate. They were like top 5 in three-point shooting, top 10 in rebound percentage and stuff like that. And I really thought about it, but then I looked at their schedule, and they didn't play any like Power 5, any major conference teams, and I just can't see it. I feel like those numbers are just kind of inflated by them playing in their own conference, so I'm going to go with Arkansas. But I promise you, I legitimately, if it was a normal year and Colgate had played, teams like Mississippi State or Tulane or, normal major teams and played well against them, I would legitimately be picking Colgate. And I know people like Arkansas, they're a hot pick, but I'm going to pick Arkansas. I still think they will win this game. And then here, again, it's just another toss-up for me. Florida is definitely a talented team that can't really stay consistent, and Virginia Tech's just kind of meh. So I'm going to roll with Florida. I think Florida's favored in this game. And then Ohio State over Oral Roberts, like that one. So mainly chalk in this region for me. And this region down here too. So over here, I'm going to like Illinois over Drexel. Loyola-Chicago. I think Loyola-Chicago is very underrated for an 8 seed. They're actually are number 1 in defensive efficiency on KenPom, believe it or not. And Georgia Tech's probably a hot team that everyone likes, but I'm going to go with Loyola-Chicago. Over here, same thing. Oregon State is kind of similar to Georgetown. They're a 12 seed because they won their conference tournament, but after looking at it, it just seems like it's kind of a fluke, if anything. And Tennessee's a very solid team that had been ranked pretty much all season, so I'm going to go with Tennessee. And then Oklahoma State and Liberty. I mean, if it wasn't Oklahoma State, I'd probably pick Liberty. Liberty is the perfect team has everything that you want to look for as a team that could pull off an upset. But Oklahoma State is underseeded, in my opinion, as a 4. And a lot of people are picking Oklahoma State right now to make a deep run because they've been playing so well lately. I'm going to pick them here too, but if it had been Liberty versus maybe Florida State or Virginia even, hell even maybe Purdue, I legitimately would have considered picking Liberty. So I wouldn't be shocked if they pull this one off. I'll just say that. But I still think Oklahoma State should win. And then here, I just had to go with Syracuse. Syracuse is like UConn. It's just for some reason they always make these runs in tournaments. And I know past performance doesn't have any indication on how well they perform now, but I just like Syracuse, and I like them to get the upset. And then West Virginia over Moorhead State. And here, again, this one was just kind of a toss-up for me, but I'm actually going to go with Rutgers. Again, that's just a test to the Big Ten depth, and if Ken Palm's ratings are true, the Big Ten is the best conference, and it will show in this tournament, so I guess we'll see. So I'm going to go with Rutgers there, and then Houston over Cleveland State. So I had a couple minor upsets in this bracket here. But overall, I mean, the biggest upset that I picked was Ohio over Virginia, and this might actually be the first year in a long time where I picked all the 5 seeds to advance. Usually the 5-12s is where the upsets usually happen, but like I said, I thought about doing this one, very close to it, but all the 5 seeds advancing for me, which is unlike me. I usually pick more upsets in the first round, so if you're disappointed at all that this is too much chalk, I hate to tell you, but we're going to move on here. So, round of 32, Gonzaga all day over Oklahoma. Creighton and Ohio. I'm already bold enough picking Ohio to beat Virginia, and that's not going to last any longer. I like Creighton. Creighton's a very good shooting team, and I think, like I said, I think everyone's going to probably be picking against them because of what's happened recently with them, but maybe they make a run in the tournament. Maybe it doesn't have any effect on them, and they're still a very solid team, and I'll pick them to make it to the Sweet 16 against Gonzaga. And then this was a big one, USC versus Kansas. On paper, believe it or not, USC is actually would be a slight favorite against Kansas. USC is Evan Mobley, one of the best freshmen in the country. He'll be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. And USC, their problem is that they don't shoot free throws very well. And Kansas is a very veteran team, and they have been playing well. If you look at Kansas' schedule, they didn't start off too hot, and in the middle of the season they were kind of meh. They had COVID issues. And then towards the end of the season, they really stepped it up, and they've been winning a lot of games in the Big 12, which is a tough conference. So I'm going to go with Kansas, and they do have a little bit of experience too, over USC. And even though the seed doesn't suggest it, this technically would be considered a slight upset. And then over here, I have a legitimate upset. I'm going to go with Oregon over Iowa. This one was also kind of bold of me. Iowa, I love Iowa and Luke Garza, but they're one of those teams that has the highest of ceilings and the lowest of floors. And I'm going to bet on the floor here. I'm sure Iowa might go out there and prove me wrong and make it to the Final Four, but I am banking on the low end of that spectrum of outcomes, and I'm going to pick them to get upset by Oregon, who shoots the ball really well. And they're a veteran team. They got experience. So I'm going to have Oregon make a run here and meet Kansas in the Sweet 16. Down here, as I said before, I could see either of these two teams challenging Michigan, but I'm going to pick Michigan to move on. I think they're just too well balanced, too good. I'm not going to take that risk of having them lose this early. Colorado and FSU, I'm going to go Colorado. I think Colorado is a very solid team. They're a very veteran team. They shoot the ball well. And I like that experience, and I think they're kind of underrated in this tournament. They're probably one of those teams that's going to get overlooked. I mean, I saw a lot of people picking Georgetown, and I think Colorado's going to the Sweet 16. And I think they got a decent shot against Michigan, personally. But we'll get to that. BYU and Texas, this one was almost a toss-up for me. Two very solid teams, but I'm just going to go with Texas because they had the Big 12, brutality in their schedule. And Texas was, at one point in the season, a consensus top 5 team, and they were playing very well. So I'm going to stick with the Longhorns, and it seems like they maybe have found their stride similar to Kansas in recent weeks. And then down here, I'm going with the upset. I like UConn to take out Alabama. Alabama's a very good team, and good for them to have their program this good, especially with the way their football team is. They now have a good basketball team. But I just think it's a tough draw having to run into one of these two. I think either of these two are capable of beating Alabama, and I don't know what it is. I'm just not that high on Alabama, so I like UConn and their balance to take out Alabama here in the round of 32. So I actually have both 7 seeds here taking out the 2 on this side of the bracket. And then we're going to move over here. I think Baylor's in trouble with either of these two teams. I really do. I think either of these two teams can beat Baylor, but I'm not going to pick it. I'm going to go with Baylor. They are the #1 shooting team in the tournament, and they have so much experience. Those are things that normally you would like. They're just not a team that's playing at its peak right now as they were at like middle of the season. Baylor at the middle of its season, I think, could win the whole thing, but it just hasn't been the same since their COVID issues, and I think Baylor got the toughest draw, personally, of all the 1 seeds. And I think they're going to have to fight in the battle right out of the gate with Wisconsin or UNC, but I still like them moving on. Here, I like Purdue pretty easily, and the reason is because Villanova is losing Colin Gillespie, who's one of their very good shooters. He's a veteran guy, and I saw that once he got injured, they've dropped 3 out of their last 4. And Purdue is a very balanced team, very efficient, and again, I think Purdue will win this matchup. I just don't see Villanova overcoming that injury. It seems like it's actually going to be a bad one for them. And then over here, I struggle with this one so much. I think the trendy pick is Arkansas. Everyone seems to be liking Arkansas now. I mean, I almost had Colgate beating them. Moses Moody's a very good player, but I almost just decided to flip a coin on this one legitimately. And I'm going to go with Texas Tech. I know it's kind of bold, but on paper, these teams are almost even. And kind of similar with Creighton, I'm just going to just go against the trend. I'm just going to do that. I don't know why, I'm just going to do it, but that's that. And then over here, I thought about it, but Ohio State, I mean, Florida has the talent to pull off an upset and make a run in the tournament, but I like Ohio State to move on. And then over here, this is an interesting matchup. 2 teams inside the state of Illinois, Loyola-Chicago and then Illinois. I think Loyola-Chicago is a very good team, and they might keep it close, but I think Illinois will pull away and win this game. Tennessee and Oklahoma State, I heard a lot of people saying this could be a good game. I think this will be a good defensive game. I think Tennessee might actually be favored in this game, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma State because they've been playing so well lately. And then here, I'm going to go with the upset. I got the 'Cuse taking out West Virginia. West Virginia just hasn't been trending the right way lately, and they just never seem to do well in the NCAA tournament for whatever reason. Maybe this is the year they finally break through and make the Final Four, but I'm not going to pick it, and I think it sucks that they got to potentially deal with a team like Syracuse here in the round of 32. Maybe even San Diego State could take them out, but I'm going to go with Syracuse. They're like UConn. They just seem to be one of those teams that whenever they sneak in as a lower seed, they make runs. I don't know what it is. And then Rutgers and Houston, honestly, this would be a pretty defensive, boring, slow-paced game, but I'm going to go with Houston, just much more talented than Rutgers. And that'll do it for the round of 32. So you can see I have a few interesting matchups here, a 3 and a 7, 11 and a 2. Another 3 and a 7. I still have all the 1 seeds alive. So now we're going to move on to the Sweet 16. And I'm going to take the Zags over Creighton. I like the Zags a lot. I think they're clearly the best team in the country. And I think they will take out Creighton. I really don't think Gonzaga has much of a tough path, honestly, in this bracket, as much as like Baylor, maybe like a Michigan do. And then down here, again, I struggle with this one. When I looked at this, I was thinking, am I really going to have Kansas going to the Elite Eight? and I am. Maybe Oregon. I just don't think Oregon can sustain playing this well for this long. If they're able to take out 2-seed Iowa and then take out another 3-seed Kansas. Kansas. It's not like I'm that high on Kansas, to be honest, but just the way the dominoes fell for me, I have them getting to the Elite Eight. So, I mean, like I said, I will not be shocked if Kansas loses to USC or, honestly, maybe even Drake in the round of 32. But for the way the dominoes fell for me, I have them in the Elite Eight. Michigan and Colorado. Oh, I was very close to picking Colorado in the upset. I like Colorado a lot, but I'm just going to go with Michigan. I'm going to play it safe here, and I think Michigan will move on. I think maybe Michigan is the 1 seed that everyone's probably going to pick against because they have dropped a few games lately. But if you just look at their numbers and everything, they're still so good. I could see them winning it all still. I still think Michigan could win it all. And I'm not going to pick them I'm not going to pick against them even though I really like Colorado. And then here, another tough one. I thought about it, UConn, but I'm going to go with Texas. I think Texas, playing at its ceiling, which I think they will, is a top 10 team, and I think they will just outlast UConn. So I have Michigan and Texas, so I have 2, 1, and 3 seeds as a matchup here on this side of the bracket. And then over here, I hate to do it, but I got Purdue upsetting Baylor. You know, like I said before, if this was a month and a half ago, I'd have Baylor in the championship game. But Purdue is such a balanced team, and Baylor just has been tapering off a little bit, and they shoot the ball very well, but if they just have one of those off nights, I could totally see this happening. Like I said, I already thought they were treading water with Wisconsin or UNC in the round of 32, and I just think this brutal draw for Baylor is going to get to them. And I got Purdue taking them out here in the Sweet 16. If not, I could see them getting taken out in the Elite Eight. But I'm going to have Purdue move on. And then here, I thought about picking Texas Tech, but I'm going to have Ohio State win. So I'm going to have an all Big Ten 2 versus 4 here. And this bottom half of the bracket I don't think is as strong as up here, but I'm going to have Ohio State coming out of there. I just think Ohio State's got a really good offense, and I think Texas Tech might be lucky to be able to get this far, so I'm going to pick Ohio State to beat them. Over here, man, this is just a tough draw for Oklahoma State. I think personally they should have been a 3 seed, or else I would have picked them to maybe go to the Elite Eight, but you're going to run into Illinois and their former coach, Brad Underwood. I'm going to go with Illinois. Illinois has just been playing so well lately, and it's kind of hard to pick against them. And then down here, Syracuse and Houston. This is where I think Syracuse's run comes to an end. I feel like Houston's probably the favorite 2 seed to maybe get knocked off, but I think people underestimate Houston. I think Houston's a pretty good team, and I think Houston could make the Final Four. But you'll see in a second if I pick that. So here I got 2 1 versus 3s, a 4 versus 2, and a 1 versus 2. I know not the most exciting chaotic bracket. Usually I have a little bit more chaos in my brackets, but I'm just playing it safe with how this year's played out, like I said before. So we'll get into the Final Four here. So here, I don't think it's a surprise if you've been following along. I'm going Gonzaga. And then down here, Michigan and Texas. I also struggled with this one, but I think the Big Ten is the best conference. The Big Ten and the Big 12 are definitely the best 2 conferences, but I think the Big Ten, especially with the teams at the top, is just so good. And maybe the best conference that, like from a power standpoint, that college basketball has ever seen potentially. It's very good. And I think it'll get shown in this tournament. So I'm going to go with Michigan. I think Texas is a very trendy pick now, especially after the Big 12 tournament. So if you see a trend here, I got Big 10 over Big 12 here, Big 10 over Big 12, and then again, Big 10 over Big 12, Big 10 over Big 12. It's 4 in a row. So that's going to set up Michigan and Gonzaga in the Final Four, 2 1 seeds for me. And then here, struggled with this one. I was very close to picking the Boilermakers, but I'm going to go with Ohio State. I really like Ohio State, and I think they're a very good team. I think their offense will be able to carry them in the tournament. I think last year in the tournament, they would have been primed to make a run as a lower seed, and I think they'll do it this time around. I think Ohio State got a decent draw with their bracket. And then down here, I wanted to pick Houston. I really thought about it. Everyone's picking Illinois. Everyone and their mother's picking Illinois right now. And I wanted to do Houston, but I just couldn't do it. So I went with Illinois. And as you can see here, look at this Final Four. I have 3 1s and a 2, which again, it just pains me. When I got to this Final Four, I was just like, man, I almost wanted to change it because I just did not like the fact that I had 3 1s and a 2, but that's just the way the dominoes naturally fell for me and how I picked it. And you see the other thing here too, there's 3 out of the 4 teams are Big Ten. Like I just looked at this Final Four and I hated it. Honestly, I hate my own picks, but it's just how I think it's going to play out. And we'll pick them. So Gonzaga and Michigan, I think this will be a very good game. I could see either team winning. I'm going to go with the Zags though. I think from the get-go, Gonzaga's been the best team in the country, and I have them going to the national championship game. And then here, Ohio State and Illinois, I was so close to picking Ohio State. I was teeter-tottering on this one. That Big Ten championship game was such a great game, and this would actually be the 4th time these two teams would play each other, which I think they would hate if this happened, but I'm picking it to happen, and I had to go with Illinois. So I have Gonzaga and Illinois in the championship game, 2 1 seeds. And also, if you guys follow the Illinois football dynasty that I do on this channel, I can promise you that I'm not doing this out of bias. I have no personal affiliation to Illinois whatsoever. I just picked them because I thought they'd be a great rebuilding team in the game. I have zero affiliation to Illinois, and I think it's just ironic that they happen to have a really good basketball team this year that can win a championship. So I promise you this is an unbiased pick right here. And between Gonzaga and Illinois for the championship, I think the team that will win this game is the one that will finish the season undefeated, and I like the Zags. Gonzaga, I have winning the championship. I just really like them, and if you know me personally, I've kind of had this trend over the past 3 years where I've picked Gonzaga to win it all the past 3 years in a row, and this will actually make it 3 years in a row this year. And it's just a thing that I like doing. I've always been a fan of Gonzaga, and it's just been intriguing that they're out in a different conference. And I know most of you will say, oh, well, they don't play any good teams. Well, I'm going to show you something right here. So I know they play in the West Coast Conference. It's not a strong conference, but look at this. They beat Kansas, who is a 3 seed right now, by 12 points. They beat Auburn, a very respectable SEC team, by 23 points. They beat West Virginia, a 3 seed, by 5 points. They would have played Baylor, which would have been a terrific game early in the season. It got canceled, though. They beat Iowa, who is a 2 seed, by 11 points. They beat Virginia, who is a 4 seed, by 17 points. They beat BYU, who is a 6 seed, by 17 points. They beat BYU again, who is a 6 seed, by 10 points. Like, if you don't think Gonzaga can, if you think they'll just fall apart in the tournament because they haven't played tough teams, I mean, just look at this. They are clear and far the best team for me. And they're number 1 in KenPom by a huge margin. They're one of the highest teams in terms of marginal difference between 1 and 2, and since KenPom's been a thing. And I like them. So that's my rebuttal. If you don't like Gonzaga, but then again, it's maybe some sort of a curse, if anything, if I pick them, because I haven't picked the correct winner in some years. So I'm going to go with 83-77, and that's going to do it for me. I have the Zags winning. Once again, if you're new to this channel, I advise you check out the Illinois Fighting Illini Dynasty. Those of you who watched that, I appreciate you guys watching. And if you want to leave a comment, feel free to. I like when you guys comment on the videos. Let me know what you guys have as your picks. Let me know who you got winning it all, who's your Final Four, who's some of your first round upsets. The first round is my favorite round of the tournament. I love seeing all the upsets and everything, and you got all the different games going on at the same time. So like I said, it's a college football channel, and that's my more knowledgeable area of expertise, but I love college basketball, and even though I'm not as knowledgeable of it, I keep up with it just enough to be able to have somewhat of a respectable opinion here. But again, it's just for fun. So let me know what you guys think, and you can look forward to some future Illinois Dynasty videos in the near future if you've been keeping up with that. So once again, thanks for watching, and you guys will hear from me as the Illini take on Purdue in the next video.